Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. I see a couple of familiar faces and names. So happy to have you here. My name is Lisa Gear. I'm the Dean of Admissions at Southwestern. Tonight we're joined by Gustavo Mora, class of 2004.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And he's going to be our guest speaker. We're also joined with by two current students, Brittany and Fabiola. So they'll be here too. If you have current student questions, they'll be mostly manning the chat. So feel free to drop questions in there for them. I'll be asking questions as well, but feel free if you have a question for Gustavo. This is meant to be interactive and for you to get a chance to learn about his line of work and the opportunities that he's able to provide for his clients. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Gustavo.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Welcome everybody to the chat. I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your busy schedules to look into this and see what Southwestern's all about and what I've done as a former student and eventual attorney here in Los Angeles. I'll try to get through my background as efficiently as possible. I went to undergrad at UC Davis up in Northern California, and I am originally from Costa Rica, so I'm bilingual, and I always knew that I would want to take advantage of my Spanish speaking skills in any line of work that I went to in the future. And I also recognize that Los Angeles has a humongous Latino population. So I came down here to Southwestern specifically because I did want to have my future here in Los Angeles. I mean, it always made sense that whatever school you go to, you're going to end up finding work usually in that area, or at least the most opportunities will be in that area. And so did my law school here at Southwestern, took the bar, and then I went off into as an associate for a couple of immigration law firms. While I was in law school, I did a couple of externships. I worked for HIV and AIDS Legal Services Alliances for immigration packets for them, because way back when, if someone was HIV positive, they unfortunately had to file for a waiver showing not only hardship, but also their ability to pay for medical insurance in order for them just to be able to get a green card. It seems a little archaic that now, seeing what they did before, but that's how it was. Fortunately, they got rid of that rule, and after that, I worked for Scott Day Legal Services, which was that was an externship that I did while in law school as well. So instead of an internship, I was getting paid. But it was for the nonprofit organization where we were helping individuals from Central America file for temporary protected status due to the hurricanes, which were devastating the region at that time. A lot of refugees had come to the United States due to the Central American hurricanes. After law school, like I said, I started working for a post-production company because I was also interested in entertainment. But while I was working for that company, doing licensing for them, I was I had an attorney reach out to me from Glendale, an immigration attorney, just a solo practitioner, private practice, but he gave me the opportunity to basically learn under his wing. And I really thought it was a great chance for me to be able to dive into something that I was passionate about, which was helping immigrants to join the United States as legal residents and eventually United States citizens as well. From the beginning, I always realized it was a lot more rewarding than other types of law that I had available to me. And so I was very appreciative of that position. I was there for about a year, and then I transferred to a firm in downtown Los Angeles, an immigration firm that was about 4 attorneys working there. From there, I was there for a couple of years, went to another firm in Whittier with another solo practitioner, where again, he was really impressed with the experience that I had in the past, and knew that I'd be able to handle a day where I would go to a detention center and represent a client in court out in Adelanto, and then same day drive to an adjustment interview in downtown Los Angeles or in San Bernardino. And after that, head back to the office and meet with other clients, and when we're preparing for court for the next day or later in the week or what have you. And then finally, after that, I went to the last firm that I was at, which was Reeves and Associates, which is one of the larger immigration firms here in downtown LA. They're in Koreatown. And I did the majority of their court work and a lot of the USCIS work. The difference between court and USCIS is that court is where people who are been placed in immigration proceedings, either through removal orders that are threatened against them, or with any other type of relief that they're requesting. That's what we do in court, as opposed to USCIS representation, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, where we represent clients who are applying to get their green card affirmatively or applying to get their citizenship affirmatively. In some cases also they're applying for asylum as well. And so I did that for Reeves, for Ronzio and Associates. And, but besides that, the firm also, this is kind of an interesting aspect of the firm, which I never got into, but they did a lot of business immigration and did all of the visas for UFC fighting. So all UFC fighters that came from out of the country into the US, and a lot of boxers from out of the country that were coming to the US for fights were going through our offices. So we would have a lot of those athletes come to the office, and we would help them out to do that type of service. So after that, in 2000, how long has it been? 2012. 2012 was DACA. President Obama announced the DACA program, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which was a program that allowed for individuals who, through no fault of their own, were brought to the United States when they were under the age of 15. I realized that that was an opportunity for me to finally go off on my own and open my firm. I figured that there were enough young people out there that would need help in applying effectively and correctly applying for DACA in order to go off on my own and start a business, essentially. And I gotta say, it was really scary at the time, obviously, because I was leaving a well-paying job that I was very comfortable with. And I'm not a gambler, but the fact of the matter is that when it comes to gambling, if you're going to gamble on anything, gamble on yourself. And that's where that was the epiphany that I had in order to justify me going off on my own. But it wasn't just me going off and throwing up a door sign and having clients just magically appear. It was through a lot of connections, networking. You'll hear a lot about networking while you're in law school. Really just making connections, making friends, knowing people in immigration. And I reached out to several senior attorneys who are already practicing. And I basically put myself out there and said, look, if you have any complicated cases that you don't want to deal with and you want to refer them to me, I'll gladly take them. We started doing those types of business structures, and from there I got the ball rolling and started getting clients coming in. And I'm very happy to say that from the beginning, my business flourished. It didn't just meet the status quo. It went bigger and bigger and bigger. And so now I have been in practice for 8 years for my own firm, and maybe 9. maybe not. We're coming up about a decade for sure. And it's just me and one paralegal, and a very good colleague of mine told me from the beginning, um, growing a huge firm is all about ego, and you got to be really careful. Always keep your overhead as low as possible, and I've taken that advice to heart. And that advice rung especially true during this pandemic. I know several other attorney colleagues who have been in the game as long as I have. They had larger firms, and they had a lot of paralegals, and they had a lot of secretaries, and even a couple of associates. And I mean, it just hit them terribly, and they had to let go a bunch of staff. I've kept my paralegal, hasn't been any issue whatsoever. And more importantly, since the pandemic, the first couple months definitely did slow down. A lot of people stopped calling, and seemed like it might be a bit scary, but business has been completely normal. We're for sure an essential business. There's no doubt about it. I mean, my clients depend on me not only to represent them in court or with the USCIS, but also to ensure that they're getting their work permits that we're applying for, and to get any other documentation that could prove that they are allowed to be here legally through this entire process. And especially in light of the aggressive tactics of the current administration. So that's my story. So please, if you have any questions, let me know.
I did get a question emailed to us. What do you recommend for those not yet in law school but interested in the immigration field to get started?
So, it's not uncommon for immigration attorneys to be interested in internships, or anyone coming in to just help out, clerks or whatever, whether it's paid or non-paid. I was always apprehensive when I was in law school, or even before law school, to reach out and randomly to different attorneys' offices, and I never did it. I never thought that why would they be interested in me? I don't know anything about immigration. How am I going to be able to help them out? And you shouldn't know, because you haven't done it before, right? But for sure, I could tell you that if a clerk would offer themselves to many busy firms, they'd be glad to accept any sort of help whatsoever, even though it may just end up being basic things as filing. But once you get the foot in the door, then you could start making yourself available and saying, okay, well, I'm doing these filings for you, and is there anything else I could do? Could I actually do filings for you at the court? Can I send documents to the court? Can I drop this off? And so you can start familiarizing yourself with the court. You could ask to go to court with the attorney. You could see them in action before an immigration judge and a trial attorney. Just so you know, I throw out a lot of jargon just because it's my field of practice, but a trial attorney, we call them TAs. A trial attorney is basically like a district attorney, except it's in federal administrative court and immigration law. But so yeah, if you want to get exposure, there's also nonprofit organizations. I'm also a board member for the organization that I worked at when I was in law school, El Rescate Legal Services. They have been around. They're still around, helping the Central American and Latino community. And they asked me a couple years ago to be a board member for them because of all the work that I was doing, because I do free consultations for them still to this day. And so, yeah, those organizations are always looking for help, and they're absolutely full of work that they are overwhelmed with. I know Rescate does a lot of asylum stuff. I know there's organizations like Chirla. But yeah, I mean, don't be shy. You could actually go to another angle, and this would work for any type of law, not just immigration. But if you go to the Los Angeles County Bar Association, and I know they give discounts for students, because for an attorney, it's like $400 something a year to be a member, and that gives us access to what's called the listserv. which is basically an email blast list. So when I check my email, I constantly see postings from all the attorneys that are in immigration law on the listserv. And often I see attorneys saying, oh, we're looking for a law clerk, or we're looking for an associate, or we're looking for this or that. Honestly, if you went in there and put your name and maybe put your resume and said, hey, I'm interested in becoming a law clerk, or, you know, or an intern, would you be interested in you know, having me come in and we could discuss my background? That's a really good way of doing it. So just to repeat, that would be the Los Angeles County Bar Association. You become a student member, and then you ask to be placed on a listserv. And there's at least 20 listservs on there. There's bankruptcy, there's immigration, there's criminal law. I mean, you name it, civil law, you name it, they have it. So once you join one of those listservs, you'll see your email will be flooded with all these attorneys talking to each other, and then just jump in there and become part of the conversation, and you know, go from there. It is really networking. No one's going to just reach out to you out of nowhere and say, hey, you want to work for me? You know, just because.
Can I give you money?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know anything about you. You know, you've got to put yourself out there. It's honestly, it's like dating too. You know, like you're not gonna. The most beautiful girl in the world is not gonna just knock on your front door and be like, hey, you want to get married? You know, it's like you've got to go out there. You've got to be social. You've got to make yourself known. You got to make yourself available. And you know, for type B personality people, that may be difficult. But the fact of the matter is that if you're going to law school, even though you're not type A, you've got to get out of your comfort zone, break out of your shell, and make yourself available.
Good advice. Okay, next questions. You can just unmute yourself or go ahead, Amir.
Yeah, Gustavo, thank you so much for taking the time today. We really do appreciate it. And I'm not in the same field as you. However, I too myself am currently an employee at a smaller law firm. We have 2 practicing attorneys. And I too have goals of opening up my own shop one day. So my question to you is, I know you said you got to invest yourself and take that leap of faith, but what factors led you, and how did you know that, you know what, it's time for me to set up my own shop? Because I always feel like there's always more to learn, and it's easy to say the time's not right. And then the second part of that question is, I do know that you said you got some clients through attorneys saying if you have complicated cases, but what were other ways in which you gained cases? I'm sure that wasn't your whole flow of cases.
Of course, yeah. Well, first, touching off of that, word of mouth is always the best type of advertising or marketing, for that matter. My wife is in marketing. She works at a company for a tourism company, and she's always jumping on me and saying, hey, you gotta make your website look better. You got to do more marketing on Facebook. You got to do this and that. I never do it. Like, she's in the other room, but I never do it just because I'm not a marketing mind.
Imagine how much more successful you could be.
Well, that's what she says to me all the time, actually. Wow, Lisa, that's you took the words right out of her mouth. But the fact of the matter is that word of mouth is the best way. And I'm very, very, very focused in my work and what I do. I'm not really a marketer. With that said, I do some marketing to the extent that I'll post pictures of my clients when they get a green card, and I'll post it on my Facebook account. I'll connect my television interviews on my website or on my Facebook. I'll post that as well. But yeah, it's word of mouth is really where the most of the business comes from. When I started, like I said, I had a couple of attorney colleagues that I asked them to send me difficult cases. But besides that, I also made sure during my consultations, first off, back then I was doing free consultations. So that's an easy way of
always
getting interest.
Draw people like that.
Right. I do charge for consultations now, but back then I would. So like, small little incentives. I still on occasion do, but I would always give out my direct cell phone number and tell them, try finding another immigration attorney that would do that for you, right? So that was a good angle right out of the gate, just from the beginning. I would answer questions via text. So building a relationship, a positive relationship with clients goes a long way. Being available to them, always returning phone calls is a big thing. That's where a lot of attorneys can get in trouble, because clients start thinking that, oh, I paid this guy a lot of money and now he's ignoring me. What's going on, right? But then I also, when I was successful with a case, I would always tell my clients, hey, would you be kind enough to, if you had a good experience, would you be kind enough to give me a nice review on Google or Yelp or whatever? And so, I try to do that as well when I can. I forget to remind them sometimes. If they're not tech savvy, then they won't do it. It's no big deal. Actually, I have one guy who said, oh, he's a great attorney, good job. And he gives me 4 stars. And I'm like, what? Come on, that's not how it works. Just give me the 5 stars, So my Google reviews are like 4.8 stars because of that one guy who just didn't give me a 5 stars. But and then as far as what I think you asked me why, what was it that finally pushed me to go off on my own?
Exactly.
I had a lot of, it helped that I had a lot of friends who had gone on their own before me, and they all were doing well enough to maintain their overhead and then go above and actually make a profit, because ultimately it's a profit, right? You're running a business. And that's a big thing, because in law school, we teach, unless you're doing a BA program as well, in law school, they teach you to be an attorney and to prepare you for the bar exam. They don't teach you how to start a business. They don't teach you that you've got to go get a license from the city of LA, and you've got to get a license from the county of LA. It's just an application. You pay like, $110 or whatever.
Bureaucracy paperwork.
Yeah, but it's yeah, exactly. And these are things you don't know. And then I remember my biggest thing that kind of blew my mind was when I was using my stapler and I ran out of staplers. And then I was like, okay, I'll just go wait. Oh, I don't have an office supply cabinet. I have to go, and because you're at a firm, I know when you run out of staplers, what do? You go to your supply cabinet, right?
Exactly.
I have to go to Staples myself, or Office Depot or whatever, and buy staples. I mean, these are like things that that was the biggest thing that kind of like blew my mind. I was like, okay, I truly am on my own. Everything falls on me. But the beauty of it too is that you're your own boss. So you make your own hours, you work as late as you want, or you leave as early as you want. But the fact of the matter is that you're working for yourself, no one else. And that's where your motivation comes from, because the money that comes in and the work that you do propels the business, and the business is you in many respects as well. You take pride in the business. You take pride I take pride in law offices of Gustavo Mora. I'm very, very, very proud of what I've created and what I've been able to succeed at for the past few years. So hopefully I answered your question.
It's your baby. Well, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, my name is Kristen. Thank you again so much for taking the time. I know that you had mentioned that immigration specifically was something that you felt was much more rewarding than the other opportunities or areas of the law that were available to you. Is that something that, because of your background, you felt super passionate about, or was it something that you discovered before becoming a law student or during school, or maybe a combination of all of those?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never thought about it. You're a potential student, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when you're in law school, you'll find that there's certain subjects, just like in college, there's certain subjects that just fascinate you. This is so interesting. for me, that was criminal law. That was not so much administrative law, although I took it and I did really good in that class for some reason. And I ended up being an attorney that works in administrative law. But then criminal procedure and constitutional law. I loved those subjects. I just found them fascinating. And, you know, the idea of what justice is and what, that sort of stuff was really, and then just knowing our rights from the Constitution, which is the highest law of the land. People take it for granted that we have a Constitution, but there's some really good stuff. There's some amazing language in there, right? And in particular, Fourth Amendment protections were always really interesting to me, and what the police can do and what they can't do. And so I was interested in doing something in entertainment, just because it's sexy, if you will. You know, entertainment is just like, oh, what a cool subject matter. And it was interesting, but you don't really, or I personally didn't feel any sort of satisfaction by just figuring out, oh, that these tapes were licensed to this company and this organization, and they should be saved over here, and they could be sent back to this place. And it just wasn't something that was really motivating or interesting to me. Whereas finishing a court case where you've just won someone their legal right to stay here with their family members after 20 years of being in the shadows, that just hits you in the stomach. It's just a punch. That is satisfying to me. May not be to everyone else, but it was to me. So you're not expected to, in your first, second, or even third year, know what kind of attorney you're going to be. The point of law school is to prepare you for the bar exam, right? But in that time, you take the opportunity to look into different types of law and doing internships if you can. Like I said, that listserv, that's something I realized, you know, just a month ago or so. I was thinking, wow, if I was a law student and I really wanted to try a different type of law, or you know, explore aspects of different types of laws, I would jump on that listserv, look at the different fields. Like I said, there's about, at least, I said 10, there's probably like 20, 25 different groups on there. I would jump in there and reach out and present myself, and you know, that way you could go into it, because not all those, you're not going to be able to take classes in every single subject that you're interested in law school. You just don't have enough time. There's way too many prerequisite classes for the bar exam and for graduating. So, but you know, just look at, just see what you find interesting, what's satisfying to you, what fills your soul, if you will. Because that way you really will enjoy what you're doing for a living, and which I feel like I do. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Kristen. Next questions. Brittany and Fabiola, if you guys have a question, you're welcome to ask.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate Gustavo being here and sharing his insight.
Have you guys signed up for the LA County Bar as he was talking about?
I personally haven't, no.
There's your homework.
Yeah, I know. It's on my to-do list.
You have, Fabiola?
Yeah, and like every day, like he was saying, we get pretty much like a briefing, which is really interesting, because a lot of times too, it gives you like, for example, I'm looking at it now, and it has like court cases or that just like opinions that just came out, and like new subjects. So it has like con law, torts, and I just think that's really interesting too. You know, I don't always have time to read it, but when I do, you know, this is really interesting, and like, you know, to know what's going on in a field that you might want to be part of.
And you have to do that for your own edification as a practicing attorney in that field. It's something that I find extremely helpful. I'm always have my finger on the pulse of immigration law. that's especially important too, because I do a lot of interviews with Telemundo, and I'm constantly checking not only the listserv, but also websites, you know, like the Washington Post, LA Times. I also go on the Reddit subreddit politics, where they're also aggregating a bunch of different stories from all different sources across the US. And I've actually successfully broken many stories for the local Telemundo station here, days in advance of when it hits national news. A perfect example was the story of the ICE detainees, the females that were being given forced operations. So I broke that story here in LA as well. And if you guys are interested, I taped an interview a couple of hours ago. So I'll be on tonight at 6 p.m. on the Los Angeles Telemundo broadcast.
Wonderful. So Gustavo, can you tell us maybe about an example of a case, obviously you don't have to reveal anything that's sensitive about your clients, but, where you just felt, I don't know, overwhelmed, a lot riding on the line, and
I got the perfect example.
Okay.
I got the perfect example. So when I was an associate, maybe 5 years into my career, again, I've been doing only immigration law, but I was an associate attorney for an attorney out of Whittier, and he wanted to delve into criminal law, which I was open to do. And he sent me on a case where I made a Fourth Amendment search and seizure argument because this individual was caught being under the influence of a controlled substance, which under immigration law makes you deportable if you have a green card. And there's and I could go into the technicalities, but at the end of the day, if this guy received a conviction for this crime, he would for sure be deported out of the country and not be able to return. No waiver available, nothing. So there's a lot riding on the line. And it was a criminal case that I did the, I prepared the brief from scratch. I made my arguments. I went to court. I represented him. And here's the other thing. He didn't look like the most upstanding citizen. I mean, he for sure looked like a guy that would be under the influence walking down the street. But unfortunately, he had a drug problem, which, that's just, it is what it is. And afterwards, he did get help, and that was great. But I was able to make my arguments, cross-examine the police officer that arrested him. And I remember the district attorney in court before the case started. I said to him, "Hey, what do you think? What do you want to do here?" And he's like, "What do you mean? What do I want to do here? I'm throwing the book at your client. We're charging him." I'm like, "Can't we negotiate anything out? I mean, can we do something?" And he's like, "No, there's no way. He was under the influence. That's it." He was also from Boston, so he had this like thick, heavy Boston accent, and he was just like really aggressive and pompous about it. Whatever. So the point is, I present the case. The judge, after I do cross on the police officer, the judge says, "Okay, I'm going to step out and come back in and make a decision." And apparently, I didn't really catch it at the time, but while I was questioning the officer, I was able to elicit that not only did he show up with his lights on and block my client who was walking down the street, block him with the police vehicle, and come out with a full uniform and a firearm. Not only did he walk up in a very obvious position of authority, but he also placed his hand on my client's shoulder. And my argument was that there was no way that a reasonable person would believe that they were free to leave at that moment, and that he was, in essence, arrested by the officer as soon as he was touched. So the judge comes back, and as she walks in, she looks at me and she gives me the smile as she's sitting down. And I honestly said to myself, holy bleep, like, did I just win this case? And she explains that, right, the client was going down the street, and yes, obviously he was under the influence, but because the officer did an unlawful arrest without probable cause, it was an unreasonable search and seizure, violating the Fourth Amendment. Therefore, all the charges are dropped. All the charges, anything that stemmed from that initial illegal detention, cannot be used against him in court. So she turns to the DA and says, how would you like to proceed, counsel? And he just took his binder, slammed it, said, we're going to drop all charges. And she says, all right, case dismissed. The guy didn't even look at me. He just grabbed his binder and stormed out the back. And the best part is I look at my client and I'm like, and he's like, what just happened? I don't know. He was just oblivious. And that happens all the time. That's what's crazy about law. When you could represent clients for the craziest cases, and you know that you just did a spectacular performance, and then you just kicked ass for their case, and they're just like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you hired me, and I mean, I hired you, so cool. Thanks, we won. That's great. Every once in a while, they are appreciative, but the majority of the time, especially for some reason, especially on super complicated cases, they're just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad that worked out. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. If anybody has one.
I just have a quick one, Gustavo, going back to what you originally said. Anyone with a green card who is caught under a controlled substance they're on ground for deportation. Is if I heard you correctly, is that what the law states, or?
Right. So it's a controlled substance violation under Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act.
Wow, thank you.
So, and that's interesting too, because when they have a green card, there's certain instances, for example, where someone who is applying for a green card, if they have a controlled substance violation, or they have a domestic violence arrest, or if they have a firearm arrest, they could still receive a green card, right? In the majority of instances. But once someone receives a green card, the theory is that they're held to a higher standard. And so because you've been given the opportunity, the privilege, it's like a driver's license. You've been given a privilege to remain here legally in the United States, but you're still in this probationary sort of period as a green card holder. And so if you commit those types of crimes, then they make you immediately deportable, which is a term of art in immigration law.
Well, that's some nuance there. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
So any other questions before last remarks?
Come on, guys, don't be shy.
You can type them in the chat if you'd rather. No? Okay, well, Gustavo, do you have any final remarks for our students? You've given them some really, really wonderful advice, and you're still a great storyteller. I love listening to the different antics and such. But anything else you want to leave them with? Anything perhaps maybe you wished somebody had told you many moons ago when you were starting off in law school?
I always tell the students this, that if you're starting off and I guarantee you the 2L and the 3L that are in this meeting right now will agree. One of the best strategies for your law school exams is to find your professor's prior law school exams and their sample answers and just study off of that. Honestly, you don't even have to study off of any of the other resource materials, the Barbary or any of whatever those companies are trying to sell you a bunch of different resources. Because the point is that you're studying off of an audience of one. So as long as you know your audience and you know how that professor, how he or she wants a question answered, if you figure that out based on their sample questions and their sample answers, then you're going to be golden. And you will learn off of those essays the law for that subject. It's extremely helpful. So make sure you do that when you're studying for your first year classes.
It's a good tip. I'm sure Brittany and Fabiola do that already, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, I would echo that 100%. And just like you're still doing the same type of structure, but every professor is going to want their own unique type of thing. Like some professors want the rules verbatim of what they say in class, and other professors want more like use of cases. So you really benefit just asking your 1L professors like, oh, like what are you looking for? Or even taking a practice test to them, just being like, oh, can I go over this with you? And then they'll kind of tell you how to fix it and how to change it and how to make it better. So that's definitely what I did 1L year. I went to all my professors because they all kind of wanted different little specific type of things. So I just wanted to make sure I was pleasing all of them. So
Great.
Really agree. Yeah. And the great thing is that professors will make those available for you most of the time. So it's not like it's something hard. It's not like a scavenger hunt. And also just wanted to add that sometimes professors have their own terminology that they use. So like if you, for example, use Quimby, which is one of the sites, sometimes they use something completely different, and just professors know that you got that like somewhere else. And I think that like, of course, they prefer you do what they're teaching you and use that terminology, like Brittany said.
Yeah, customization, right? That's key. Not unlike the application process for law school. Know your audience, right? It's always good advice. So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this evening. Thank you so much, Gustavo. Remember, if you want to catch him tonight, 6 o'clock, he'll be on the news again, as he is so often. It's always a treat to get to see our alums out there in the world. So if you have a chance,
check out my website as well, GustavoMoraLaw.com, or my Facebook. I'm there as well.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
thank you, Gustavo.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You're very welcome, guys. Thank you.